Ain't nothing but a gangster party. This was quite an eventful episode. It's probably my favorite of the season so far. So let's go ahead and jump right into Call Me Red. So we start out seeing Dexter playing dress up. He's wearing Red's hoodie and he's getting ready for this VIP killer extravaganza, doing a DIY fake thumbprint situation and everything. Harry was like, "Don't do it, reconsider." But Dexter wasn't hearing that. So then we bop over here to the locker room at the Empire, and Elsa and Harrison are like talking, and she's trying to coach him on how to get better tips by looking the right way. And they seem to be having a good time. They're all smiles. And then Harrison gets a call from the watch repair company. They said Ryan's watch is available. And he was like, "Oh, I'm kind of swamped." They was like, "We could drop it off. Just let us know the guest's name." And then he was like, "Oh, no, you know what? I'll actually come get it." Now, when I first started thinking about this, I was like, why is he acting so weird about this watch? I was like, it's not like you did anything wrong. Your supervisor saw Ryan hand you the watch to get repaired. You did exactly that. And now it's done. So just go pick it up. I don't know what the problem is. Now, I may be totally off base about this, but for some reason, I feel like he's acting guilty about this watch because he's going to keep it as a trophy, because there's no other reason to really feel guilty about this. So Red Dexter decided to ignore Harry and say, "Yeah, I'm going to this drop point." Got picked up by Charlie. They were chatting on the way to the place. And she said, "It took me about 3 weeks to find you. You were just so hard to find." And Dexter in his head was like, "Girl, that's child's play. It only took me 3 days." But she's not like him, so there's that. So they get to their location and they get in the elevator. She pats him down to make sure he doesn't have a lot of weapons and things on him that could potentially hurt people. And then comes the moment of truth where he has to use that fake and bake thumbprint and see if that works. Now, the first 2 tries did not work, and Charlie was about ready to put in that work, but then he rubbed it on his chest and blew it like a Nintendo cartridge, and it worked like a charm. So Red Dexter was in. So as he walks off the elevator, he is in the lap of luxury. It was supreme opulence. And Charlie introduced him to the man of the manor, Mr. Leon Prater. Apparently, he had been hosting these gatherings for years, and he told Red, "This is a safe space for people like you." And Red Dexter was like, "So you're not one of us?" And Leon said, "Absolutely not. That is not my particular talent, but I'm a fan. And Red said, "So what do you do?" And Leon said a number of things, but then he said, "In a nutshell, I bring certain people together." So Charlie decided to take her leave because she didn't particularly care for what Leon was about to show Red. Now, they were in a wine cellar, and Leon told Red to push a button on one of those racks, and that opened up like a vault. And when it opened up, the first thing you saw was this clown outfit. And I couldn't believe Dexter didn't catch it immediately, because I knew what it was before it was even explained. Of course, it was Pogo the Clown's costume. And then you start looking around and you see memorabilia from so many different serial killers. You got Dahmer, you got Bundy, you got the Trinity Killer. And I was like, I'm waiting to see it. And surely enough, there were slides in a case from the Bay Harbor Butcher. And Dexter was almost salivating over that. He was like, "I missed you so much." And he touched him. The man said, "Hey, chill out. Don't be touching stuff." Even had the bed where Dexter killed his brother Brian. And it was interesting because Prater actually said if Brian had somebody like him to talk to, he might still be here. And Dexter was thinking, I doubt that. Now they kept talking, and Prater said, "This is somebody that you're going to meet. This is Rapunzel. And then another person you're going to meet is the tattoo collector." So the next thing that Prater asked Red for was a trophy from his collection. So Red Dexter passed him the license from his very first kill. And he placed it in the section right next to the name Dark Passenger. And I know Dexter's still salty about that name, but he got to let it go. So in walks the next guest. It's Mia, aka Lady Vengeance, who takes out S-Predators. So Dexter's thinking to himself, maybe she has a code if she's taking out predators. So they're doing a little small talk and they're having a conversation about names. She does not love hers, but she said the media is obsessed with nicknames. And while Prater goes to attend to the rest of the business of the party, she invites Dexter to have a drink. And so they're sitting there trying to drink this wine. And she's a sommelier, so she knows all about this bottle of wine. She said, "Hey, you're not even drinking this right." She said, "This was bottled when Mark Twain was alive. And at $4,000 a pop, I'm going to be honest, y'all could have kept that. Baby, the Moscato that I like is only $20 at the store at the most. Honestly, it'd be on sale most of the time." And while she's teaching Red Dexter how to be the perfect wine taster, Al, aka Rapunzel with the bundles if you're nasty, walks in the room. Now, it's hard for me to not see him as Cam from Modern Family, but he's doing a good enough job to make me not think that Mitchell's gonna pop out anytime soon. But speaking of family, he got his own Modern Family. He got some kids, he got a wife. He was talking to the kids on the way in the room. He was like, "You scored a goal. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I love you so much. Daddy's got to get off the phone, but I'll talk to you when I get home." And Dexter was like, "You have a whole family?" He was like, "Yeah." He was like, "How do you do that?" And Al said, "Well, essentially, these trips like these allow me to satiate my needs, and then I can come home and be a better family man." And he said, "It's not selfish, it's self-care." Not him making killing sound like he at the spa sipping cucumber water. And then Lowell arrives. And it's almost like a high school reunion for these killers because they know each other. The only person that doesn't know the people is Dexter. And Lowell welcomes Red Dexter to the freak show. And Dexter was like, "There's no place I'd rather be." So then we bop over to Lance's apartment. And Lance opens this door baked out of his mind. Angel is there. And Angel is like asking about this truck. He was like, "I need to talk to you about this truck. Do you know Jim Lindsay?" And Lance was like, "Who is Jim Lindsay?" And Angel said, "The owner of the truck?" And Lance said, "Absolutely not. I bought this from my partner Harrison." And Angel said, "Harrison Morgan?" And you could look at his face and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm really on to something." So we bop back over to the gangster party. And the last guest, known as the Gemini Killer, shows up. And after he arrives, you see Harry over there standing outside the glass like he can't get in the club. I was like, "Fam, you are a ghost. And to be honest, you're actually just Dexter's consciousness. So why are you over there acting like you're in the timeout corner?" And he's trying to talk some sense into Dexter. He's like, "You sure you gonna kill these people? Because it seemed like you like them." And Dexter was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it." And Harry was like, "Well, I also taught you not to play with your food." Speaking of food, they're at the dinner table, and Al looks at an empty seat beside him and says, "Is Keith not coming?" To which Leon replied, "Oh yeah, he's not gonna be able to make it. He broke that rule that you don't go against the group, so he's out. And his Inglorious Bastards bat is gonna go in my collection since he doesn't need it now." So this answers my question from a previous video, because I was like, why did we see Keith in the first place? Was it to show that a spot opened up for another serial killer? We just got the answer. So they're starting to dig in for dinner. And Dexter is beginning to grab one of these rack of lambs or whatever this thing is. I don't know what it is. But he ended up getting the vegan option because that's what they saw in Red's house. Had cookbooks that were vegan and all that kind of stuff. Now, he could have been just trying stuff out. It doesn't mean he was 100% vegan. But it was nice of them to think about his dietary needs. Now, I'm going to tell you, for your safety, as a real vegan, if you put cauliflower on my plate as an entree, while everybody else got these really nice, heavy plates, I'm gonna fight you. I might just take Keith's space because you're not finna trigger me like this. And you could just tell that Dexter hated that meal. I bet you he could kill everybody at that table after he finished it. But good thing for him, Masterpiece Theater came on. So Lowell decided to do a presentation showing his next victim. Her name is Jules. Her dog died, so she's getting a tattoo in her dog's honor, and it's almost done. And as soon as it finishes, he gonna cut that thing off of her. And this is supposed to happen before he leaves town. And he was starting to talk about how he couldn't fight this feeling. And that's when everybody went around and talked about what they called their desire to kill. Someone called it the itch. Somebody else called it the urge. Somebody else called it the need. And Dexter called Lowell to the top of the list because his need was so urgent. He was like, "Baby, you in the VIP for sure." And Prater hit up Dexter. He said, "Listen, I don't want to put you on the spot as the new guy, but that money was kind of a good faith investment that you will present next time." And Dexter was like, "Oh, this is happening again?" I was like, "Oh, sir, you done signed up for a commitment. Don't play games now." Prater was like, "Yeah, we got stuff planned for like the next 2 weeks. So then we go back to the Empire Hotel and we see Harrison walking with Ryan's watch. Not really sure what he's planning on doing with it, but Angel is actually waiting for him in the lobby. So Angel strikes up a conversation with him. So they briefly travel down memory lane. He did the same thing to Dexter. He kind of tried to soften him up before he started hitting him with some hard stuff. So he was talking to Harrison. He said, "Oh, my sister used to babysit you. Now she got her PhD and stuff." Then he said, "I bought you that train back in the day." And Angel was like, "Your dad is the reason why I was in Iron Lake." And Harrison said, "You heard the news that he got shot and killed." And this is where you know that Angel's playing the game real cold, because he let Harrison say that, didn't correct him at all. Just let the ignorance slide, just in case he didn't know who he was dealing with. He then also said, "I heard you were in Iron Lake for a little bit too." And he said, "I came to see my dad, but when all this stuff went down, I just left. It turns out he's not the dad I needed." And then Angel said, "I'm sorry Dexter wasn't the guy you thought he was." And he said, "I had a similar experience with your dad. Did he ever talk to you about his past? You can tell me because he's gone now." And I was like, oh, look at Angel. He's out here not only letting this man believe that his dad is dead, he's lying for real. And Angel said, "My ex thought that Dexter was actually the Bay Harbor Butcher." And Harrison was trying to play it off, but his face always looks guilty. But then he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "I wish I could help you with that." So Angel went ahead and slid him his card and said, "Hey, I'll be around for a few days." And Harrison walked away, but he was shook. So shook that he didn't even play around with Elsa when she was like, "Hey, you can fix your face for this customer service, baby." Now, Elsa saw that Harrison was flustered. She tried to fix the situation, but she made it worse by approaching Angel because she was like, "He didn't have anything to do with that murder." Now, Angel was like, "Now, what murder are we talking about, sis?" And I'm sure when he was hearing the details of this, he was like, "Oh, this sounds Bay Harbor Butcherish." Continue with the details. See, this is why you don't just talk to everybody. You don't know this man. I know she loved Harrison, but she need to mind her business on this one. So back at the Prater home, you have Dex over here looking at his phone, trying to look at the articles about Lady Vengeance. She got a little peek over his shoulder, seeing what he was looking at. She was like, "Oh, culture." She said, I did the same thing with you, but I couldn't find much. And then Lowell interrupts their little chat that they're having to get her to pour him a little bit of wine. And you can tell she doesn't like him. Now, once Lowell is out of the way, she asks Dexter, what is your origin story? She assumed he had mommy issues. And he said, well, I actually love my mom. He said, I didn't have issues with my mom. I had issues with how I lost her. And then Dexter asked Mia, what's going on here? What is Prater's deal? And Mia said, we can't talk about that here. How about we do something tomorrow? So then Charlie starts handing out phones to each of them so they could stay in contact for the next 2 weeks. Al done started a whole group chat. I can only imagine what killers send in a group chat. They send knives and bombs and all manner of dangerous gifs. So on the way out, Dexter talks to Prater. He's thanking him. He's like, listen, I haven't been to such a place where I can express myself so freely, ever. And he says, what is this presentation supposed to look like? We're doing a PDF, light show, what's supposed to happen? And then Prater is like, I'm sure you'll come up with something great. And Dexter was like, I'm looking forward to it. And then when the elevator closes, Prater turns around to Charlie and says, well, that went exceptionally well, didn't it? And Charlie was like, if you say so. And I'm thinking, girl, why are you working for him if you're going to act all salty like this? You don't really like what he does, do you? I would say quit, but this is a bad economy, so I ain't going to tell you to do that because your skill set might not line up with every job. An initial thought hit my mind. I was like, maybe she's like an undercover cop trying to set people up. But then I was like, nah, because she took that bat to keep. So girl, you got a body on you. And so Dexter is walking out on the street and he's like, oh, I'm no longer a lone wolf. Stops and orders himself 2 hot dogs because you know he's famished after that vegan meal. But you better be careful because you're supposed to be fake and vegan. Now, if somebody's following him, they could say, well, he just stopped and got himself 2 hot dogs. They're not even thinking anything of it. But then somebody else that knows his diet situation is like, now wait a minute. He pretended to be vegan at the party with us. All it takes is a little bit of suspicion. So back over at the Empire, Harrison is in his room, but Ryan's watch is ticking and talking him to death due to guilt. All he can hear is tick, 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 tock, 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 tock. It is just getting on his nerves. So he tries to tuck it away, but all he could hear was tick and tock the whole time. So he decided to leave. He went over to Elsa's house and said, hey, I just need to be with a friend right now. So of course she invites him in. Meanwhile, Dexter's walking back to his apartment and he looks through the window upstairs and sees Blessing and his family just having a great time. Per usual, the family is just like, overjoyed. And Dexter notices, he's like, they are good people, but they're not my people. And so he hits up Mia and says, hey girl, what we doing tomorrow? She said, let's hit up Central Park and bring your running shoes. And you can kind of tell that they like each other in a different way. And Dexter sure do know how to pick them because he's always picking a killer queen. He definitely got a laundry list of dangerous exes. So it's only a matter of time. Speaking of queens, Harrison and Elsa love watching Drag Race. And I love that for them. But Harrison decided to sashay away when Elsa stopped him from making the move that I expected him to make because he thought it was rejection. I don't think it was rejection. I think she was trying to stop him so they could chat about blurring the lines of their friendship. And she also has a son, so she has a lot to think about. But Harrison is young and vulnerable, so he's thinking that he done screwed everything up. He probably thinks she doesn't feel the same way about him, which definitely isn't true. He just needs to learn how to listen. But instead, he decided to storm out and play some emo playlist. Meanwhile, Dexter is still watching from afar, and his Harry side is saying, go to him. But he's still being reluctant. To be honest, he should go over there and try to talk to him because he'd find out that Angel is really on to him. But I'm guessing this is what's supposed to happen. But Dexter is also trying to fight this situation where he has to figure out the strategy on taking out these other serial killers that are VIPs. It's not as simple as just taking everybody out when you're the new guy here, so nobody came up missing till you got here. But the Harry side of his mind was like, well, what about Jules that's gonna get skinned before Loyal leaves town? The Dexter side was like, I got it, man. Let me take care of this. So he calls Lowell and sets up a time to kick it with him in the nighttime because Lowell does not like the morning. So then Dexter goes on that run with Lady Vengeance and he learns a lot about her. They actually learn a lot about each other. She talks about her upbringing and where she's from and why she took out her mom's boyfriend as her first kill. She used ballet to get away, but her younger sister was still at home and her mom's boyfriend turned his sights toward her. So her younger sister was harmed by him, and once she found out, it was a wrap. She said it felt better than ballet. And Dexter actually told her what it felt like for his first kill. You could tell she was getting weak in the knees for Dexter. She was like, you want to come back to my place? I got some great pastries. Now, at first I thought she was going to try to give Dexter some of them cakes, but then she really did have some pastries. And they look good too. That cinnamon roll looked fire. She handed Dexter this pastry with kale on it, and I said, ma'am, see, this is a violation number 2. You could have kept that. I would have just rather had your conversation. If we being honest though, Dexter can actually talk his way out of this. He can be a flexitarian like everybody else. You know how many vegans or vegetarians I know that said, hey, I was trying it out. I gave it up for this amount of time. I don't really want to do that anymore. Like, they might see a plate of ribs and be like, you know what, I want these ribs. And they do it. For some reason, Dexter is playing along like he can't change his mind. Because look at his face when he's eating this. Just pure disgust. He put that thing down so fast and went straight into asking questions like, girl, where did this ballerina box come from? Did this come with the Airbnb? She told him to check it out. He looked closer and saw that she had her trophies in the box. And you could tell that she was just getting charmed like crazy because she was like, you know what? I'm going to take a quick shower. And she left the door wide open for him to come in. So I guess she was trying to give him some cakes after all. And he was about ready to go in there and play patty cake and oblige her. But then Harry talked him out of it. And Harry was like, you got to go meet Lowell. And I was like, Harry, you're right. But you are blocking. So at least Dexter didn't do an Irish goodbye. He told her, hey, something came up, so he had to dip. So Dexter finally makes it over there to Lowell and says, hey, I'm sorry I'm late. And Lowell was like, hey, can we do a rain check? Because I need to prepare myself for tattoo terror tonight. He was like, my girl got crazy pain tolerance, so the tat is almost done. I thought she was going to take more sessions, but she's almost done, and the timeline has moved up to tonight. Had his anesthesiology gear with him and everything. He could barely contain himself. So Dexter left, and he realized, oh my gosh, Lowell is ready, and I am not. So he looked at how long it would take him to get to and from with his things, and he realized it was going to take too long. It's so funny because I had never been to New York, but I've heard people complain about their borough situation. I'm not borough bouncing. You all the way over in Brooklyn. Baby, it's too far. I'm not coming. So back at the precinct, you see Detective Wallace is looking over this case, and she's still listening to that Staying Alive. And Detective Oliva is trying to make sure he checks on her so she doesn't obsess like she did in a previous case. He also questions if somebody that's Harrison's age is capable of pulling off such a sophisticated crime. Detective Wallace was like, I just need to step back a little bit. So while she's having a coffee break / talk break with Detective Oliva, something expected happened. Angel walks in. He approaches Detective Wallace and says, I want to talk to you about a current case you're working on that's similar to some of the cases that we've had to solve down in Miami. We were never sure that we got the right guy. Can I pick your brain? And she says, how much time do you have? He said, as much time as you can give. So next we see Jules walking down the street. Her new tat is done. Lowell might as well be her shadow because he's that close to her. He turned that gas on because he's ready to pounce. But Dexter pounced a lot faster, got him with his own gas. Now, of course, Dexter stayed on that side of town because he didn't want to have to do all that borough bouncing. So he had to get ready fast. He set up a kill table in the tattoo spot because most of the things that he needed was there. The rest of it was supplied by Lowell. Now, Dexter woke him up with a cut to the cheek like back in the day. And Lowell woke up and said, F me. And Dexter was like, tonight's the night, baby. He didn't even go crazy or anything. He was just like, I've been on the opposite side of this for so long. I know how this goes. Could you at least do me a solid though and just like knock me out? And Dexter was like, nah. And Dexter asked, why do you keep the skin? And Lowell said, because I like looking at it. This has kept me from being way worse. I could have had way more kills and I could have gotten sloppy and gotten caught. And at this point of the conversation, I'm thinking, well, Dexter, he kind of seemed like you and he seems kind of chill. You could let him up this one time. Let Shantae, you stay. But now Dexter had to be boring and be like, I know the feeling. He said, that's why I'm going to go back to the basics. And then he took a picture frame off the wall and made a big blood slide like back in the day. Except this slide was like the size of a big king size candy bar. And Lowell was like, this is your trophy? That's kind of lame for a guy that takes heads off. And that's when Dexter revealed himself. He said, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name's the Bay Harbor Butcher. And that information got Lowell's attention because his reaction seemed like, oh, I got a lot to say about the Bay Harbor Butcher. But unfortunately, Dexter took him out too fast. But he was still trying to talk with a knife in his chest. Next time, Dexter, take your time so we can hear what the people had to say. I bet everybody in that room knows the Bay Harbor Butcher's name. The box in the museum was full of slides, and it didn't account for everybody that Dexter is taking out. I wonder if they would have let him in had they known that he was the Bay Harbor Butcher. Like the VIPs probably wouldn't have trusted him at all. Or they might have had to make up different rules for him because they know his MO. But at least he's owning the name now because he was definitely not the dark passenger. So I keep trying to think to myself, how is Dexter actually going to get caught? Then I'm listening to this conversation that he's having with Harry on the way to get rid of Lowell's body. And Harry is trying to convince Dexter that he needs to have a real relationship with Harrison. And Dexter is still scared because he was like, it's a two-way street. What if he prefers that I'm still dead? And then Harry was like, well, do something about it. And you can look at Dexter's face and you can see that his wheels were turning. I think there's a number of ways these things can go, but we'll talk about that later. So as Dexter is introducing Lowell to Red, Harry made a strong point that Dexter will be the prime suspect in the group. Dexter said, I'll figure it out like I always do. Now back at the Empire Hotel, Harrison says, what's up to Lance. But Lance ain't really for the laughs today because he was like, did you sell me a stolen truck? And Harrison was like, no. And Lance replied, well, why did this fedora wearing ass cop come to my house? And Harrison said, I don't know. And he said, well, you better figure it out because he's right over there. And Angel walked straight up to Harrison and said, hey, let's have some coffee real quick. And so while they sat there, Harrison said, I guess you didn't come with no cute Miami stories this time. Angel informed him that he heard about Ryan's case and said, it's funny because he was killed in the same way that the Bay Harbor Butcher would usually do it. And Harrison said, well, I hope they catch that guy. Angel said he spoke with Detective Wallace and she said the cleanup was so immaculate, it seemed like it was done by an expert or somebody who was trained by one. Harrison was like, oh, that's crazy. And then Angel said, not as crazy as if you know that the son of the notorious serial killer is living in the very same hotel. And he said, I didn't say anything about you yet. I just need confirmation about Dexter. And Harrison is out here sticking to the G code of silence because he don't know nothing. He might as well have said, I cannot see, I'm legally blind. And let me tell you, make sure you treat people right while you are on this earth because the way that Ryan was hell on earth, people are talking so bad about him in death, it is funny to me. Angel's like, this Ryan guy sounds like a donkey. Good riddance. And then Angel asked Harrison, did your dad make it seem like that was all he was doing, taking out the worst criminals? Because a lot of innocent people died because of Dexter, including my ex-wife, Maria LaGuerta, your aunt Deb, and your mother. The way he said your mother was so aggressive. I was like, oh, he wants this to stick to that man's ribs. He wanted to stick to his eyelids when he sleep at night. He wants that to reverberate internally forever. You could tell he struck a nerve. And then Harrison calmly said, it seems like you went down a real conspiratorial rabbit hole. Good luck getting out of that. But we done here. And he tried to walk off after that line, but Angel grabbed his arm and said, you're going down a dark path here. And hopefully you don't become your dad. Now Angel knew he killed that convo. The way he slammed that mic down to make sure it was broke, he was like, boom. And as Harrison's walking down the street, his mind is tore up. As I said, Angel's words were reverberating all throughout his body. Lil Harrison can't function straight. He whips out Detective Wallace's card and ends up calling her, but he only gets to her voicemail. Then he hangs up, immediately turns around and walks the opposite direction. And at this point, the ticks and the tocks from Ryan's watch were intensifying. And the path he walked led right to the police station. And just as he gets ready to walk toward the entrance, Dexter grabs him and says, Harrison, don't. Now at this moment, Harrison is flummoxed. The only word he could muster up was, Dad? And that's where the episode ended, y'all. That was a lot to process. This season can go a number of ways. Angel can continue to work with Detective Wallace and Oliva as a task force to put all the pieces together so no one is singled out, because Dexter will get you by yourself. And I would have said that they could keep applying pressure to Harrison, but I believe that Dexter's going to be in the driver's seat from now on since Harrison is in a pinch. Now after Harrison gives his dad a good smooth cussing out, he's going to fill him in on everything that's going on. Now as far as the gangster party goes, Dexter will probably chill on like the killing part because he already took one person out. So you got to let that simmer down. Now one thing I did wonder is if they put trackers on the phones that they handed out at the party. Did they have somebody assigned to track those individually? Because how would they know if people are breaking rules? And Mia definitely said that Prater is a voyeur, so that wouldn't be too far-fetched. Also, he's rich. Rich people kind of have some interesting idiosyncrasies at times. For all we know, Prater could be tapped into all the cameras on the streets trying to watch y'all do what y'all do. Because how is he finding y'all and the police can't? Now, let's also talk about the fact that Harrison is so close to getting caught up. I wouldn't be surprised that Dexter has to give himself up in order to keep Harrison free. Because Angel said he didn't want to see Harrison go down the same path as his father, and he's choosing a dark path. Speaking of dark, did Harrison dye his hair in New Blood? For some reason, I thought he was always blonde. That was just a random thought. But he is trying to stay on a good path. It was just unfortunate that the Ryan situation happened, and he panicked. Now what I do think is he needs to get rid of Ryan's watch or calmly give it back to the detectives because it doesn't indicate wrongdoing. If it's found on you when they come to get you though, it looks like robbery. You gotta learn to move in the light so nobody says you're doing anything in the dark. Speaking of moving in the light, Dexter gotta kinda chill out on how much he's moving in the daytime. He's getting a little too bold. I think back to when Dexter's mom and Harry were like creeping around in the park in the daylight like Estrada's people weren't just looking at him. When you're dealing with the criminal element, somebody's always watching, and it could easily lead back to his house. And what I'm gonna tell you is right now is I don't want anything to happen to Blessing and his family. I'm gonna come get Dexter myself. My black glove's already in the car right now. Stop messing around, D. So what did y'all think of the episode? Did you see anything else that stood out? Feel free to leave a comment down below. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.